Okay, Tyler.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you guys having me in for this presentation tonight for your dinner theater. This is a presentation that I call Combustion Analysis, the Essentials. This is what I would want to be taught if I was sitting in the audience. Kind of cuts to the chase on a lot of stuff. I go in depth and into the weeds on some things, but I go into the weeds on some things that I think I need to go into the weeds for. So hopefully by the time you leave here, you'll have a better understanding of what all this is about. 2 seconds on me. My name is Tyler Nelson. I am the Instrumentation Sales Manager, the Business Development Manager, Global Trainer for Sauerman Americas. So I also proudly hold my Master HVAC designation. I'm a NEAT instructor and presenter. Cell phone contact is there, email contact is there. So if you need to get a hold of me, please feel free to do so. Enough of that. Oh, and by the way, I wrote a book on this topic. It just launched on Monday, so 2 days ago. It's done very well, very happy with it. I go over diagnostics quite extensively in the book. I cover every aspect of combustion, commissioning, diagnostics, maintenance, how to test, where to test, why to test, typical readings per system. I cover cracked heat exchangers extensively, which I'll do here also at the end. So if you want to get it, QR code is there, scan the code, and feel free to get it. I think you'll enjoy it, and if you don't, just lie to me and tell me that you like it anyway. Enough of that.
Is it digital or hard copy?
It's digital. So the PDF, it's very easy to read. It's 106 pages. Take about an hour to read it, but then you can refer back to it. It's meant to be used in the field, on a tablet, or on your laptop, or on your phone. But it isn't.
He updated it an hour after he.
Yes, and as I update it, which I do frequently because I'm OCD, you will get those updates for free if you purchase a book. They'll automatically be sent to you. So I also have a video, so if anybody needs further instruction after this is hitting, it just hit 50,000 views, so we were very lucky with that. And thank you to Craig from AC Service Tech for his popularity in helping push this out there. So that's on there too. And 2 seconds on the company. Designed by techs for techs, collaborative design effort. So the folks at Sauerman, we take great pride in designing technology and tools for you to use that are designed by techs who actually use it, such as myself. So the running joke that is that if you like the way these operate, feel free to give me a high five. If you don't, you can give me the finger, because I had a hand in how these were designed and some of the input into some of the functionality of them. Also too, as well as did my colleagues from around the world, and they had a great deal of input. So, but we take great pride in how these operate. So if you like them, all the power to you. Please continue to use them. If you don't, then hopefully we can win you over. Enough on the company. We also make condensate pumps, by the way, too, which Jeff can always cover with everybody after we're done. As the island of our knowledge grows, so does the shoreline of our ignorance. John Archibald Wheeler. What does that mean? That means that you're going to learn that as you gain in knowledge in this field, not just in this topic, but in this field in general, you're going to realize that as you learn more and you kind of take a look back, you're going to see how far you've come. Don't get intimidated thinking, okay, I've learned so much, I still have so far to go. Don't get intimidated. Just take it piece by piece, day by day. It's a learning process. Tom learns every day, I learn every day, Jeff learns every day. We all learn every day, you know. I can learn stuff from everyone in this audience here, as I try to do every day. So not only when I meet people that I have a business relationship with, even a personal relationship with, I'll say, who do you know that I should know? I also want to know what you know. Tom and I talk, we ask questions of each other. You know, we try to get smarter. I do the same thing with Jeff. So again, don't get discouraged, keep pushing, keep seeking, keep asking questions, and keep seeking answers. So lots of things we're going to go over today. We're going to go over to it in rapid fire succession. Mastering the obvious, I'll cover what that means. We're going to cover commissioning, diagnostics, maintenance. We're going to cover draft. We're going to cover gas pressure. We're going to cover cracked heat exchangers. We're going to cover where to test, why to test, how to test, what the readings mean, all those different kinds of things. I also have a section at the end, which I've been doing now exclusively at the end of the presentations on ChatGPT, or not even ChatGPT, but using AI in your everyday life as a contractor, so I can cover some insights on that, because now I've been placed tip of the spear, so to speak, and I've been doing a lot of presentations on AI, and it's becoming something that's important to me. And the spoiler alert on that, you're not being replaced, so don't need to worry about it. Okay, so you can untether yourself from that feeling you're not going to be replaced. In the words of the great Chuck Norris, keep your side of the street clean. What does that mean? That means that you cannot control what happened before you got there. You cannot control what happens after you leave, but you sure can control what happens while you're there, which means to do your testing. Your combustion test is a snapshot in time. It shows beyond the shadow of a doubt the state of health of that piece of equipment and the way that you left it. because people might come in after you and do things in that structure that changes how your combustion readings show up, and they can create a very volatile situation. However, you control the conditions that day when you were there, so you're not held suspect to that, okay? But by doing so, you're going to avoid the Wanton Act. What does the Wanton Act say? The Wanton Act says that if you knowingly or unknowingly leave a piece of equipment in disrepair or disarray, somebody gets sick, injured, or dies, you're held liable personally. They could pursue your organization you work for, yes, but they can also pursue you personally. We don't want that to happen. So do your testing, have that confirmation of the way that you left that piece of equipment, and you're gonna be perfectly fine. Keep your side of the street clean. There's two paths you could take, job or career. Judging by those in this audience here, the fact that you're sitting next to or sitting in front of me for an RSES presentation this time of night after working all day, lets me know that this is a career for you. I know some of the other ones in the audience which have salt in their beard like me, know that this has been a career for them. They know it's been a very rewarding career. But for anybody that would be of younger ages in the audience here, if it's not a career for you and it's just a job, you're gonna get exposed. And you're gonna get forced out. If it is a career for you, and not a job, it's a career for you, Tom's gonna see it, other people are gonna see it, your employer's gonna see it, and you're gonna slowly migrate your way up the ladder, and you're gonna get better, okay? So continue to take the classes, continue to educate yourself, because you're learning every day. So I encourage you to make it a career and not just a job, so you can pursue it with even more vigor. We should be testing at commissioning, maintenance, and during a diagnostic visit. We have a nasty habit of thinking everything we install is plug and play. I'm here to tell you, I've been talking about this at every conference I've been doing lately. This is no longer a push-pull, I pick things up, I put them down trade. It is the opposite. It is becoming a thinking person's trade. Things are changing, and they are changing rapidly, okay? So we need to make sure we're thinking. Part of that is testing during different firing rates and fine-tuning systems, because the tolerances are becoming very tight, okay? But I'm gonna cover the relevancy of commissioning, maintenance, and diagnostics later on in the presentation. We should be testing during the big three. What are the big three? Light off, first 60 seconds of burner operation. Steady state, 5 minutes or greater of system runtime. Shutdown, 60 seconds after the burner shuts off. Why are we doing that? There are unique diagnostic characteristics or diagnostic signatures or behaviors that will show themselves at each one of those different operational rates or time periods. Light off, steady state, shutdown. You can then diagnose the issues that are happening in each one of those different time periods and know what parts are impacting that. Also, what is it like in the rest of the world? Well, the rest of the world tests predominantly because they get their fuel from Russia, and it's very expensive. And a lot of the parts around the world, it's a mandatory thing. They test at least once per year. They commission with an analyzer, and they diagnose with one. Because of that, and they test as frequently as they do, and on a regular basis, their warranty claims are about 2 to 3%, or actually 3 to 4%. Where our warranty claims here are about anywhere from 20 to 35%. Our warranty claims are much higher because we're all not testing like we're supposed to. Okay, this is the third time I've been here for you folks. You guys test, you guys take it seriously, okay? Yeah, Jeff here, my rep in the back, Jeff Hutton from ETS. So Jeff is here. So you guys, this whole group, this whole part of your area here takes this stuff very seriously. So I'm not worried about you. I'm trying to get everybody else up to speed, as well as are the other trainers out there. And the change is coming. One of the biggest change is low NOx. Colorado, when I was out there, effective this past January 1st, only ultra low NOx furnaces and boilers are being installed out there. That's the new rule. And the only way to properly commission a low NOx system is through one of these. And you have to have a low NOx sensor in it or a NOx sensor in it. The only way to properly commission it is with a combustion analyzer that is equipped for it. Okay, so for those that didn't want to test before, eventually you're not going to have a choice. You're going to have an analyzer. That's where this is going. Become a master of the obvious. Why? You're going to see fun things like this. Over here, this is a DIYer in your state, by the way, in your state, that decided to pipe the the flue properties into the supply trunk, because that makes perfect sense.
100% efficient.
Yep, that's the best way to do it, right? Efficient. That's how we murder people. That's somebody that tries to bypass hiring a proper contracting firm like yourself. Or you could be so taken off on your heels looking at this, you could miss over off to the right, the gutter leader being used for flue piping. So my intent with this slide and the next slide after this is when you're at a job site, you are to look straight on at your task at hand, you're to look left, and you are to look right, because there's going to be revenue generating opportunities for you, but there's also gonna be liability reducing opportunities for you. So, again, that's not code, we don't do those kinds of things. Or that. That is not what we do. That is somebody that wanted to add heat into the basement for his kids, except they're gonna call him the Sandman because he's gonna put those kids down for a nap and they're not gonna wake up. Luckily, he did this in the summer and he hired an actual contractor to do his winter service in September, and the contractor caught it and said, "Sir, put on the brakes here, this is not what we do. Oh my God, we prevented a very serious issue from happening. Thank you for calling us out. Let's get this fixed." But again, you could be seeing that but missing this. So my goal here is this. If this water heater is not what you guys do, it's not in your scope of work, I don't care. You still need to document it. You still need to find out from your office what you are to tell the customer to protect yourself. Pictures, signatures, sign-offs, anything like that, okay? That is my goal with this slide and the slide prior, is to cover yourself. If it's not in your scope of work, document things accordingly, okay? CYA. And for those that are not aware, PVC is slowly going away. So combustion now has become on brand or on trend. It's becoming on brand or on trend or in vogue to be smart now. So there's no shame in being smart, but it's also becoming on brand to combustion test to the point where it got the attention of ACA. ACA requested a call with myself, Jim Bergman, David Richardson from NCI, one of the heads of Train, and a couple of other industry experts to participate in a call. We were on that call back in late September. They asked us, we didn't ask them, but they want to talk about combustion testing and PVC and everything else. And one of the topics that came up was PVC. So effective August 31st of 2021, no cellular core or foam core PVC is used for exhaust fan purposes. You install it, you are fined, you encounter it, it is a red tag situation. It is not used in the 5 boroughs of New York, parts of California, parts of Utah. PVC is never used outside of this country, okay, outside of North America. So we have been using it for purposes it was never designed nor intended to be used for. Its design and intent purpose was to be used to transport the properties of condensate. It was never designed to transport flue gases. But that's what we've been installing, including myself, for all these years, okay? And we used to think it was the temperatures passing through it that caused the issue. That is only 20% of the issue. The other 80% is the carbonic acid. I was talking to Phil earlier, we talked about carbonic acid. It's the carbonic acid in the flue gases, and it's also the NOx in the flue gases that we talked about testing for, right? But we're not testing for it yet. NOx is an acidic, poisonous gas that eats whatever it touches, okay? Carbonic acid is the same thing. Carbonic acid is like taking half a shot of Drano, putting it in your coffee cup every day and sipping it. Eventually your esophagus is going to wear away, and it's going to wear away at your stomach lining. Well, that's what it's doing. It's drying up the chloride and this polyvinyl chloride makeup here in the PVC, and it's causing it to dry and rot from the inside out. So, by the way, any slides I have in here, feel free to take a picture of it if you want to. So what is approved? Solid wall, Schedule 40 PVC or CPVC. It needs to have a continuous, not a one-time shot, a continuous temperature rating of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Also, you should be using something that's UL 1738 listed, okay? Use for CPVC, all right? So, your manufacturer of your equipment is not going to, they're going to tell you what you can use, but they're not going to give you the word, they're not going to tell you it's approved, because they don't want the liability. They'll tell you what you can use, but they won't say it's approved. Which, if you get tech support and ask them, you're going to find out that, oh my God, he was right. They're not going to tell you that. So, again, 1738, so some of the products like that are, 1738, some of the products like that are the Centrotherm Duravent, which is the polypropylene piping. Polypropylene piping is a grayish color. It is meant for the temperatures you're going to pass through it. It is not going to absorb any of the sample passing through it, which means it's going to be resistant to drying out. It's not going to dry out from the inside out, okay? And it also uses gasketed fittings, because what do we do right now? We use PVC glue. We use PVC glue to seam our connections together. If you ever look at the instructions, it tells you it takes 12 to 24 hours to cure. Is anybody in here in their right mind giving PVC glue 12 to 24 hours to cure? No. I never did. You're not doing it now. The job price isn't built in to have us wait for that kind of stuff. So we're sealing it up before maybe it has a chance to cure, which is an issue too. So this takes care of it. So this is here, the old expression, you know better, you do better. It's a public service message, so it's there. And as one more little summary, there you go, solid wall. So what is combustion? In the spirit of what used to be football season, combustion is like a collision sport. It's like football. We're going to collide 3 things together. We're going to collide a fuel source such as natural gas. We're going to collide oxygen. And we're going to collide a heat source or spark. When those three things collide together, they produce what we know as defined as rapid oxidation. And the goal of rapid oxidation is for us to derive or extract as much energy from the burning of the fuel as we absolutely can. But unless we're checking or measuring what we're burning, we have no idea what we are producing from an off-gassing or exhaust perspective, nor in what quantities, if it's safe, if the unit is running in spec. Here's all these numbers here. I want you to perceive it this way. Combustion is like getting your blood work done. You would not continue to go to your doctor if he or she did not do your blood work. Why? Because you know intellectually, but also intrinsically, that they cannot properly ascertain the state of your health without getting below the surface. They can't go on your looks, they can't go based on how you sound, because you could have cancer, you could have precursors to a stroke, you could have high cholesterol, akin to high CO in the system. You could have all those things going on inside your body that your outward appearance would not indicate, but your blood work will and your blood pressure will, okay? So when we do combustion tests, we're doing the blood pressure on that system by doing the gas pressure, but we're also doing the blood work on it by doing its full panel, which is its combustion analysis. And we can know, based on these numbers, how that patient's health is. And then we know what remedy solution to put it on. So your doctor puts you on a protocol to lessen your cholesterol, fine. We can put this system on it, we can adjust some things in the system to drop that overfire condition and lower that carbon monoxide. So we could do the same thing. So you essentially have become a concierge medicine doctor, but your patient is per system, okay? Okay, per system. So there's three types of combustion. The first is stoichiometric. Stoichiometric is what we know to be perfect combustion. It does not exist. It does not exist for two reasons. One, it assumes one thing that we don't have. It assumes that we have 100% oxygen in the air that we breathe, and we do not. For those of you that use one of these and turn it on outside in fresh air with no probes or hoses attached, which I'll cover, know that when you turn this thing on, you see 20.9% oxygen. So, you do the math, we're already at a 5-2 disadvantage. By the way, the other 78% of that is nitrogen, the other 1% of that is argon gas, okay? So we're at a 5-2 disadvantage, so we can't have stoichiometric, so we kick it to the curb. The secondary reason that we can't have stoichiometric is that we have thermal loss or heat loss with any combustion process that we employ. Stoichiometric says we don't, but we do. So we basically render this not attainable because it is a lab condition and we work at anything but a lab condition. So we're left with two other types: incomplete combustion and complete. Incomplete is where we hover and we're not testing. We're producing dangerous conditions such as high CO, soot, and the like. Over here, though, we want to migrate away from this and get to this, complete or good combustion. That is the best fuel to air ratio that makes sure or ensures that all the hydrogen and all the carbon compounds are used up. We have nothing wasted, we have nothing left over, and we have three things going forward as a mantra. We have maximum efficiency, maximum safety, and maximum longevity of that piece of equipment. But to do so, as the Beatles say, we need a little help from our friends. In this case, our friend is excess air. Excess air was brought into the combustion process because we have inadequate mixing between air and fuel. So we need to bring in a little bit of excess air into the equation to balance that out, to give it a little bit of oomph, okay? Because without enough of it, we're producing those soot and those CO conditions, okay? High stack temperatures or overly high stack temperatures, overfired systems. But with too much of it, too much excess air, we're thinning it out too much and we're wasting the fuel and we're decreasing our combustion efficiency. So the goal is to strike a delicate balance. So analyzers are 7 tools in one. They do combustion analysis, yes, but they do ambient temperature, ambient CO, draft and gas pressure, because there's a pressure manometer built in each one of these, differential pressure manometer. And you can verify cracked heat exchanger, which I will cover, and you can verify cross-contamination on a condensing system, which I will cover. But I'm also going to cover the extensive tentacles this has into the commissioning, diagnostic, and maintenance aspects of your life, as well as some other shenanigans. So testing, basic testing procedure. Turn this on, outside, in fresh air with no probes or hoses attached. If you did what I just did now and turn this on inside, and we had 100 ppm of CO in here, it's going to negate it, because when this starts up, it's going to give you 20.9% oxygen, 0 CO, and 0.06% CO2. The reason we carry an additional decimal point is that we do a lot of work with engineers. It's a specification. They carry the industrial rationale all the way down to the residential level. 0.06% CO2 or carbon dioxide is the percentage of carbon dioxide in the air that we breathe. So, if you sully or foul my startup protocol on this thing here, and you start it up in here, and we had 100 ppm of CO in here, but we didn't know yet because your monitors didn't go off, your detectors didn't go off, it's going to show you 0. And then if we went to go work on a furnace or a boiler, and there's 200 ppm in that room there, so they're only going to show you 100 because you've negated the first 100. The reason why I don't want any probe or hose attached when I start this up is that I don't want you to run the risk of pulling the remnants of a previous combustion test that is sitting dormant in this probe and hose assembly here. And when you go to turn this on, it establishes a suction, and you pull those contaminants in here and you sully that starter protocol. I don't want you to do that, okay? Then after you do the auto zero, which is what this just went through, you're going to connect the probe and hose. Now, first off, we find our spots. These are color-coded at the bottom here. Now, something to note, okay? When you do this, and you have your thermocouple, I know you're very, very, very smart technicians. However, I've seen the smartest people screw it up. The widest prong always goes to the far right. Because I've seen guys Frankenstein this, and it doesn't fit in. They're like, don't do that. You're not a kid looking like he's constipated. Don't do that. Just take the thermocouple and insert it correctly into that spot. And everything goes to the right, as you see there. Then you're going to enter the structure and perform an ambient CO test. Now, I'm going to cover CO safety with you here in a second, but I just want to kind of cut to some of the chase for some of this stuff. If you are reliant on your customers' carbon monoxide detectors to keep you safe and well, you are going after the wrong brass ring. It's not because they don't like you. It's because the detectors that they have that are UL listed go off after 70, that is 70 to 300 ppm after 1 to 3 hours of exposure. All you get is 9 ppm over 24 and 35 ppm over 8. That is it. So I'm trying to prevent the insidious nature of it taking hold of you and affecting your cognitive ability, which we'll get to in a second. So, enter the space. You're going to ask permission first to the whoever owns the building, or if it's a homeowner, to whomever. Say, listen, I just want to take a few seconds and monitor the ambient environment for carbon monoxide. And they're going to say, you don't have to do that. I got a detector over here and over here and over here. Please don't tell them what they have is garbage. Just say, listen, I think it's great that you have it. However, this calibrated device that I can trust, which means that you can trust because we use it every day, you can come with me and watch me do the ambient monitoring here, or you can just hang out here, whatever you want to do, or do whatever you want to do in the space here. But I'm just going to go through and just make sure the conditions are safe. Probe goes here across your chest, pick up the hose slack so you don't trip over it. You're going to go through and you're going to make sure you have 0 ppm of CO. Now, the correct standard, I'm going to give it the standard is it's 0 to 9 ppm. I don't care about that. I want 0. I don't want tolerances. When we're talking about this, we're talking about controlling variables. I don't want you constantly working in a condition where there's 5 ppm. That's BS. Windows would be open, place would be evacuated, you would get to the heart of the matter and find out what's doing it. I want 0 ppm in the space that you're testing it, okay? So it's not up to debate. Start up the furnace or boiler, verify gas pressure set to the manufacturer's specs, and then on your analyzer, make sure you select the correct fuel that you're working on. Here is why. Every fuel has a coefficient assigned to it. That coefficient is a long, protracted decimal point number, anywhere from 8 to 12 places to the right of the decimal point. Now, what's baked into that long decimal point number is the BTU content of that fuel and all the chemical properties of that fuel that make it up as an identifier. What your analyzer does is it takes that number, multiplies it by the percentage of oxygen your analyzer is reading at that time. The resulting answer to that math is what gives you your CO2 value. You have an oxygen sensor in your analyzer? Yes, you do. You have a CO sensor? Yes, you do. But you do not have a CO2 sensor because it is a calculated value. And again, it is calculated by taking the coefficient of the fuel, that long decimal point number, multiplying it by the percentage of oxygen. Resulting answer to said math is what gives you your CO2 value. So, If your fuel selection is off, your CO2 is gonna be off, and your efficiency is gonna be off, and some other things are gonna be off. So please make sure you select the correct fuel going forward. So if no one's ever explained that to you, now you know, you can take the mystery away from all that stuff. So as new biofuels come out, for example, we'll take that and we'll have a coefficient designed off of, the chemist will create a coefficient designed off of its BTU content and also its chemical properties. So it looks like an indiscriminate number to you. It's actually a number of high relevancy in this whole equation. Okay? Now locate the proper testing point, anywhere from 6 to 10, 6 to 12 inches above the breech. We put the probe in midway, we lock it down with the positioning cone, because if we don't lock it down with the positioning cone, which is what you see here, this cone is threaded, this gets inserted into the flue pipe, probe gets inserted midway, we lock it down. If we don't use a positioning cone, the probe falls out, we go to catch it, we can get burned. We don't want it to get burned, okay? We're not looking to do a rendition of Grey's Anatomy and go to the hospital or ER, okay? So, probe gets inserted midway, gets locked down with a nut on top of that positioning cone, and you test properly. We don't do anything halfway or half-assed in this process here. We do everything the correct way, okay? And then we're gonna evaluate combustion during light-off. In the combustion world, when I say testing during light-off, that's like calling your mother a four-letter word. I'm not interested in being disrespectful to your mom. However, in the combustion world, that's what it is like. Why? Because we run the risk of overranging carbon monoxide sensors. If we test correctly and we use due diligence, you're not going to overrange your sensor if you're paying attention. If you have our analyzers at Sourman, you're never going to overrange it because we give you programmable pump cutoff, which will actually cut the pump off before you even think about overranging that sensor, which means you pull the probe out of the stack, analyzer, take a breath for a second, put it back in and continue to test. But I want you testing at those different operational times because there are, again, those different diagnostic tells that will reveal themselves. So I want nothing left unfound or left as a mystery. There are no mysteries here. We are always to control these variables when we test. It is very important, okay? And you can control them. And then you're going to verify draft at steady state, which is for an atmospheric system, it is minus 0.02 to minus 0.04 inches of water column. For a condensing system or something with induced draft, it is positive 0.02 to positive 0.08. So, some combustion pearls from yours truly. You know, I don't know if they're pearls, but they're little pieces of tidbits of information here. High efficiency systems. 90% or greater get tested no less than 1 foot above the inducer outlet, but no greater than 2. Efficiency means fuel utilization on your analyzer. It is not the AFUE, so I'm going to explain this very succinctly for you. The AFUE on the equipment that you're installing or that you're working on is the same thing as the window sticker miles per gallon on your car that you bought. You know, in real world driving, you're not getting what the window sticker says you should be getting for miles per gallon. You're getting a scooch lower. Same thing with here. The analyzer is giving you the combustion efficiency, the fuel utilization, which is its efficiency number. However, that number will be 1 to 5% of what the actual AFUE number is, depending on the temperatures outside, depending on the time of year, especially for condensing systems, obviously. So it'll run between 1 and 5%. So it is very, very close. So you can sell off of that, okay? So very important to know that difference between the window sticker and the AFUE. You want to evaluate oxygen during the entire combustion cycle. You want to check for stabilization, escalation, and decline. We're looking for those, again, those diagnostic tells. So for example, if we had an escalation, or actually if we had a significant drop at shutdown, for example, that could be an indicator that we have a clogged secondary heat exchanger that is not draining and filling with water, which means the CO would go through the roof too, or increase as well, not go through the roof. Then, here's your first CO guideline I'm going to give you, and I'm going to give you another set here in a bit. Steady state only, 5 minutes or greater system runtime. Not light off, not shut down, steady state only. Acceptable in our industry. 100 ppm CO air free or lower is acceptable. We use CO air free instead of CO when we do combustion testing. Why? CO air free is your carbon monoxide number with the oxygen factor extracted out of it. So it is pure, undiluted carbon monoxide. The analogy is this. Your CO air free number is your hell number. If your hell number looks like heaven, you're in good shape. So we use CO air free for combustion testing. For example, if you had a CO number of say 17 ppm, your CO air free number could be anywhere from 37 to about 48 ppm. If you had a CO number of 100 ppm, CO air free could be as high as 200 ppm. So that is why we get granular. That is why we do our jobs correctly. That is why we are professionals, and we use CO air free, which is on our analyzers and on the other competitors too. That's why we use CO air free for our combustion testing. 200 ppm or greater at steady state is considered to be a red tag, a potential red tag situation, which means just slow down. Okay, so when we talk about all these things, and we're talking about evaluating systems, and I'm not just talking about combustion now, because I also do refrigeration. I'm letting you know this is how you need to think, because again, it's a thinking person's game. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. You are not to react to that space. You are to respond in that space. You are to respond accordingly. You're all very smart mechanics. I know you are. See, the thing is, you're much smarter than you think you are. So when you have that ability to respond, take a pause for a second, take a breath, and really ascertain the situation. It's not all go, 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 rush, 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 rush. You don't have to do that. Pause for a second. Properly evaluate that situation, okay? So we don't want to overreact, okay? Very important. And then 400 ppm or greater is an advice to lock out, which means the system should be shut down. Now, do you guys have a red tag protocol here?
Yeah.
Perfect. If anybody in here has worked for different companies, which I'm sure you do, please make sure if you're combustion testing or anything you guys are doing like that, that you have a red tag protocol. What the red tag protocol tells you is what to say, how to act, and what to do when you have to potentially shut a system down. Whether it's getting a second set of eyes, whether it is a certain phrase or two you have to the customer, whether it is what you have on your tablet for them to sign, whatever the next courses of action are, it needs to be crisp, it needs to have a proper cadence to it, so that the customer doesn't go, I don't think they know what they're doing. We don't want to have that situation.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So the CO air free, we take it to supply docks or on a stack?
You take it on the stack. But I'm gonna get later where we're gonna do supply duct stuff. So that's in the crack heat exchanger section. So don't blow up my spot. I'm only kidding. That's a very good question though. So it's in the stack. But when I'm monitoring the whole house, that's when I'm using the CO air free. So I always go for hell. I'm always going for that worst case situation, because I know if I can control that, I'm not worried about anything else. So I'm always using CO air free for everything. And it's easy for me with my brain to focus on that one specific CO number. Does CO spike at startup? Does it come down a level within spec, and does it spike at the end of a cycle? Check the integrity of your venting, as well as performing a draft measurement. Check and verify the gas pressure. And also, as a general rule, look at CO air free for combustion analysis and regular CO for monitoring. I use CO air free for everything, to your point.
Should it feel a spike or no?
Spike meaning at which time? Steady state, which one? So, over here, for example. It can. Every system is different, fuel delivery is different, the cleanliness of a system is different, burners are aligned differently, the quality of a flame can be different. There's the spuds could be, something could be going on with those. There's all kinds of things that feed into this. So, what I don't want is when you're evaluating a system, I don't want you off your heels. You don't have to do that. Take a second, watch what it is doing, look at its behavior, see if you see any tells there or characteristics that you know what you need to go after. For example, if it spikes at startup and it's a condensing system and it goes over 1,000 ppm, which we're going to get to in a second here in diagnostics, but if say it goes over 1,000 ppm at startup, I am not letting you get into steady state, nor am I letting you get into shutdown. If I get over 1,000 ppm, because that's a high threshold for me, that's the threshold that the industry sets, I'm shutting you down. I'm diagnosing why you did that. Is it a burner alignment? Is it a fuel problem? Is it a cracked heat exchanger? I'm doing that. So again, those operational time periods will reveal behavioral characteristics. And then you will know what behavioral characteristics, what parts or things that could be malfunctioning are influencing those behaviors, and then you go after said parts. So to kind of make this even simpler for you, I want you to look at it this way. And this is how I explain the refrigeration cycle. I know there are different things, but when I do the correlation, you're going to understand. Everything in the refrigeration cycle has a job to do. And then it passes its finished product on to the next component as a finished product. So if you hand your buddy, the next part over, a fouled finished product, it's going to then take that fouled product and make a more fouled product and hand over to the next. For example, what is the job of the compressor? Okay, obviously it's the compressed thing. But it receives the refrigerant, and what it does, it takes the low temperature, and it passes down the suction line, but it takes in low temperature, low pressure vapor refrigerant. Okay, and what it does is it compresses it. And anytime you increase the pressure on something, you increase the temperature. That's what its job is. The compressor is otherwise known as the pressure increaser. That's its factory job. The job in that's its assembly line job. Passes the refrigerant down the suction line, yes, but it receives low temperature, low pressure vapor refrigerant, forces it to occupy smaller space by compressing it. It then creates high temperature, high pressure vapor refrigerant, and then passes that down the suction line. If there's an issue with the compressor and it passes down a suction line and it goes to the condensing unit, which is the heat rejector, if it passes a fouled product to it, the condenser can't operate correctly. It's the same thing with furnaces, the same thing with boilers, inducers. Every component in that system deals with a specific task, and it passes its task off to the last thing. The last thing is fluid termination. So the last thing is inducer and then fluid termination. But there are other components that interact, burners and everything else, heat exchanger and everything else, that if they misbehave, they pass a improper finished product onto the next person saying, now it's on you. Then we have a system that has not only one thing wrong with it, but then we create other problems. This is why we do maintenance, because if something is fouled up over here, we catch it much faster instead of letting it fester for a couple years at a clip, and then it's fouled all the way down the line repeatedly, and that creates a problem. Okay. And then, where did I leave off? I was check and verify gas price. I went through all that. Next, real quick. So for those of you that don't think you can test outside, you can. Now, I much prefer you testing inside all day and twice on Sunday, but if you have an application that doesn't allow you to do it for whatever that's just too tight, you don't put your fluid, you just feel uncomfortable, you have access to the outside, you can test from the outside. You just have to get your probe far enough in to that exhaust to be able to test. This is my residence, and as you can see, shoemakers' kids go without shoes, but that is a nice 18 SEER Lux air condenser right there. Anyway, over here, these readings, because I know my own residence, because I test it frequently, these are 1%, I calculated, 1% different than if I tested inside. So it's right neck and neck. Now we run into an issue when we deal with commercial systems that have a wider diameter flue. We have more dilution there. That becomes more of a problem. But for applications like this, you can do that. But for those commercial applications, you can normally get and create an access part to, or there might already be a factory made one for you to test correctly. Just wanted to throw that on there in case there was a question for anybody. CO safety. Anybody wear one of these? Smart people. Now, Jeff, sitting back there on his phone, looking at X, is a seller of, and I don't mean anything naughty, not triple X, I just said X. So just for those keeping score at home, I know I'm on camera, I'm looking directly at the camera. This is not a dirty show, this is a family show. I've only said one curse word, I promise I won't say any more. Maybe, I might lie. I'm from New Jersey, so I lie a lot, amongst everything else that's wrong with me. Anyway, you should have a personal seal monitor. If you don't, the analyzer becomes the next thing. Same tolerances, same readability, same everything, same setup characteristics for it, or same lack of variability. Okay, same pinpoint nature. Anyway, here's your standards. So all you get is 9 ppm, as I mentioned earlier, over 24 hours, 35 ppm over 8 hours. You can see after that everything goes south on you. Okay, I like all of you. I care about all of you. I want to keep you safe. I want to make sure that you're monitoring the ambient environment for carbon monoxide. Okay, very, very important that you do that. Okay. Now in our industry, we have the following, which I think you might find interesting. Highest rates of dementia and Alzheimer's, highest rates of technician cancer, earliest age when technicians leave the field, and the highest rates of technician suicide. All things we don't want. Why is that? That is because the insidious nature of carbon monoxide. See, it's only the acute poisonings that get reported when somebody dies or 30 kids from a daycare center get rushed to a hospital because they all look lethargic. It's not what you're exposed to every day. I am trying to cut down on your exposure every day. So if you use a personal monitor or use a combustion analyzer, you're going to keep yourself safe, okay? I don't want you getting cancer. I don't want you getting jammed up and leaving this field, because what happens is The carbon monoxide gets into your system, it changes your cognition, and it changes your neuroplasticity. It literally can rewire your brain. It can make you think thoughts that you've never thought of. The technician suicide stuff. You know, they have those medications that they say may cause thoughts of suicide. Carbon monoxide can have the same insidious, and I hate to keep using that word, but that's what it is, insidious nature to it, where it can change how you think about your world. You all remember the linebacker, Junior Seau, for the San Diego Chargers years ago. Was tremendous linebacker, then he finished the career with the Patriots. Well, he shot himself in the head while sitting on his own couch. He didn't have money problems, he didn't have relationship problems. He had a cognition problem. The cognition problem for him was from the concussions, but it changed his neural pathways. His family said a couple months before he killed himself, he was saying some odd things, and they thought he was being goofy, okay, being silly. He wasn't. His cognition was changing, and they were finally noticing those characteristics, but nobody knew to do anything because they just thought he was being just being silly about stuff. Well, it changed his thought process, and it made him think thoughts of suicide, so he killed himself, okay? That's what carbon monoxide does. It changes how you think about your world, and you think of harming yourself where you never would have thought about it in a million years, but it changes that, okay? So I want to keep you safe, and I want to keep you in this field as long as possible, okay? So please make sure we're paying attention to those things, okay? So we have it where it's odorless, colorless, tasteless, mixes well in the air, and does not stratify, all right? So now, I want you to think about this for a second. If your customer calls you and they say, I smell CO, don't think that they're crazy. They're smelling the off-gassing of a combustion process, because your office is trained like my office was to say, is your monitor going off? They're probably going to say no, but you all now know that their monitor probably won't go off yet, but they still could be breathing it in. So here's what it is. They are breathing in the scent of another combustion process. I want you to envision two cables going into my nostrils here. Each cable, when you see a piece of cable, it's made of other individual pieces of smaller cable that make up its tensile properties. I want you to envision that. Well, one of those cables going through there, wrapping around like a serpent, is carbon monoxide, potentially. So it's wrapped around it. It's not enough, it's not going to register on that detector, because the detector is not going to register, it's not very sensitive, but it's enough to go into my nostrils here for me to sniff it in, and then it's enough to start to affect my cognition, and it's enough to start to make an inroad into me. If that happens repeatedly, day after site after day after job site after day after job site, over the course of a career, over the course of even 5 years or even less, it can have a serious impact in your mental health, okay? So I just want you to be paying attention to that and understand that. Because when you do your ambient sweeps, you could be there solving a problem that you were never sent there to solve. They can have an issue with an oven, stove, water heater. By the way, the most common offenders of carbon monoxide poisonings are the following: ovens, stoves, water heaters, and then furnaces and boilers. So as you're the mechanic there working on the furnace or the boiler or even the water heater, you could find it an issue with another part of the house just by doing your monitoring of that ambient environment. So very, very important. And these are just a list of the poisonings that had happened as of last year. I should get an updated chart on that, but happens quite frequently all around the country, okay? And multiple sources: generator, gas grill, car in a garage, clothes dryer, water heater, furnace or boiler, oven or stove, fireplace, blockage in a chimney, okay? So know the sources, know where the dangers are, and work accordingly. And educate your customer. If you see something that doesn't look like it's right, go, that needs to be fixed, document it, but say, listen, that needs to be fixed by whomever is responsible for taking care of it, okay? So keep yourself safe. I like all of you. So if you don't have a personal monitor, please get one. Jeff can direct you as to where to get one. By the way, this is the one that I use, okay? So I use this one myself, and as well as the analyzer. So yeah, keep yourself safe. Commissioning. If it's new, why do we have to test? It's because these aren't push-pull. You think they are. You know why? Because when you leave, it produces heat, and you think it works. You just don't know what's going on with it because you haven't done the if you probably did the blood pressure or the gas pressure on, which is the blood pressure, but you probably didn't do the combustion test. I spoke at a conference, one of the educators' conferences, and one of the heads of a very large equipment manufacturer, one of the biggest in the world, was there. And he's seen me speak a few times. He's always in the back of the audience, and he does this and raises his hand, and he does this and mimics a microphone. I said, sure. And I thought I said something that I wasn't supposed to say, and I was being taken to the principal's office. Well, I was wrong. They hand him the microphone, comes up next to me, and he kind of has like, this big guy. And he goes, okay, seen Ty speak a bunch of times, enjoy what he does, that's not about this. He goes, I'm gonna make this very simple for all of you. And they all know who he worked for, or who he works for. And he said, feel very comfortable speaking on behalf of myself and all my competitors. And I might say some things that my competitors don't want me to tell you, but I really don't care. He said, think about it this way, because we're talking about commissioning. He goes, say we make 50,000 furnaces that are 100,000 BTUs, and you all go install those 50,000 furnaces across the country. Do you mean to tell me, if you're not going to use one of these, do you mean to tell me that you're going to sign off on the fact that all 50,000 furnaces are going to behave the same way in every environment you place them in? You think we're good? We ain't that good. He goes, and I'm going to let you into something on something else, which my competitors might not want me to tell you, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you anyway because it's the truth. Most everything you're getting from us and from them is under fire. Why? Because none of us want you to blow yourselves up. We don't know the environment you're placing them into. And he said it tongue in cheek, but he was serious. He goes, we don't know the environment you're placing them into. So we like to err on the side of underfired much more so than overfired. Because overfired is overzealous. Underfired is underzealous. We'd rather err on the side of underfired. Which means if you read between the lines, I'm going to break it down for you, he said. He goes, your customers are not getting the efficiency they've just paid you for. But what's even worse is you're not getting the efficiency that you paid us for and me for. And he goes, and I make a lot of money in my position. He goes, I want to make sure I'm earning my money, which we're manufacturing it correctly. We want to make sure we're installing it correctly. So when you test at commissioning, we are not testing the efficacy of the manufactured piece of equipment. We're not doing that. We are establishing a handshake between the piece of equipment and the environment it's being placed into. That's all that we're doing. And if we have a messed up relationship where we come both in with baggage, we can't have a proper handshake. The way that we eliminate baggage is we vet each other, which means I'm vetting the environment I'm placing it into. I might need to make it a change to the gas pressure. I might be getting something in underfired, which predominantly I will, but I also be getting in something in overfired. I was training a very large contracting firm in New York State last year. They had a brand new system, 4.8 inches of water column, brand spanking new. CO was off the charts. Oxygen was 2.8%. 4.8. Brand new system. Had been installed for 6 months. And I tested, we did it, tested on their house system that they installed 6 months prior. And I showed it to them when we fixed it, and I said, show of hands, does anybody in this room think you should be combustion testing now at the commissioning process? They're all like, I'm like, if I see anybody's hand, I'm gonna break your arm. Okay. But anyway, so it's very important that these things are no longer push, pull, plug and play. It is not that kind of a world. There's tight tolerances, especially if you get into low NOx and ultra low NOx, whatever. You have to do this. You have to set it up correctly. What is the gas pressure where you're installing? Be very cognizant of that. Fuel flow rates can vary from place to place, day to day. You always want to clock that meter. Also, to be careful, certain parts of the country, it's happened by me, they change the BTU content of your fuel when we go into extremely cold weather. They pump it up with a little bit of nitrogen, which makes your pressures and everything else be a little wacky tobacco, okay? The gas company won't tell you that, but that's what they do. So be very cognizant of that. Helps when you have friends that work for the gas company, they give you the inside track on this stuff. Commissioning instructions are typically in the installation manual with parameters for O2, CO, and CO2. So follow those. If they're not, AI is your best friend. Go, I have this model number, this make and model number, can't find any combustion parameters. Either find the combustion parameters for it because I can't, or give me the closest possible representation of this piece of equipment that I can have combustion parameters for so I can benchmark it against and I can set the system up accordingly, okay? So you're setting it up for success. You're setting it up properly so when you go to do maintenance, unless there was any kind of drift from any kind of change, it should be right within specification and you can have a nice long service life. You will make money based on things breaking under normal circumstances. You don't want to be making money by attrition and having things break because you didn't do things correctly. The karma of that is not very good. And then venting, check the install manual, check the intake, check the quality of your intake air for condensing systems, and also check your draft. Seasonal maintenance. Why should we combustion test every time we engage a field fired appliance? Well, you touch it, you're liable for it. These people can sue you and they can sue your families. If you didn't know that, that is the truth, but it's been that way since the beginning of contracting. And I'll go over an example of that here in a bit. And again, feel free to take pictures of any slide you want. You can't tell how it's running just by looking at it. Remember I told you that before. Looks can be deceiving. Okay, looks can be deceiving. We want to make sure that we are testing. Don't assume the cabinet looks great. Don't assume it's humming along, or don't, because you hear it humming along, that it's working fine. Don't take that as gospel. New customers. You're inheriting new customers all the time if you're working for a top flight firm, okay, or a good firm. What does that mean? That means this. These people are making a pitching change to you for a reason. And what's happening is this. You are inheriting that previous contractor's craftspersonship, for better or for worse. It's kind of like this. You buy a house that someone else has lived in. Are you just going to move your stuff in after their stuff is out and not clean it first? Oh no. You don't know the hygiene habits of those people. God forbid you shine a blue light in that puppy. I wouldn't want to do that. So you're going to clean the house thoroughly or hire somebody to clean it before you put your stuff in, right? Same thing here. If I was you, because I used to be you, but if I was you, or if you want the advice of what the top flight companies in this country do, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not going to give names, but I'm going to tell you what they do. They say, we're happy to take you on as a customer, but in order to do so, we want to have a proper relationship and start off the right way. We want to assess all your equipment. We're not going to point fingers at what your previous contractor did. We're not into bad-mouthing anybody. We want to behave like ladies and gentlemen. But in order to do so, the reason we want to assess everything is we don't want, if we didn't do the assessment, and 6 months down the line something breaks, we don't want you to look at us and go, see, you're just like the last company. They couldn't get this thing to run right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all of our cards on the table. You're going to let me know any concerns that you have, any hot spots, cold spots, things shutting off before you think they're supposed to, because maybe you don't understand run cycles and coming out of recovery, whatever it might be, fine. But I'm also going to assess every piece of equipment in this crib. I am going to, if there's anything that needs to be repaired, I'm going to document it for you. But I'm not just going to tell you what needs to be done. I'm going to give you the measured data, the analyzer, off the refrigeration manifold. I'm going to give you the measured data that will basically verify for you what needs to be done, and I'll give you what the industry says should be done, or what the industry numbers are supposed to be, so that you know what I'm telling you. Then it is my hope that you're going to take us up on what we recommend to do, so that we can have a nice relationship together that starts off properly under the auspices of proper trust. Okay? So that is how the best companies out there are doing it, and they're charging anywhere from $75 to $1.80, $1.90 per system, depending on what part of the country, because sometimes it's more expensive to live in other parts of the country than it is in others. So that's the range that they're charging, and they normally give, obviously, discounts for multiple systems. But it's my strong recommendation that you ponder that thought and that you do that.
Is that done, Tyler, before you agree to take them on?
Yep, and what you're gonna do too is, if you're smart, if it was me, put them under contract. Everybody gets a service contract. So, for those of you that don't know, if your companies have never explained this to you, especially you young ones in here, I'm going to explain this to you now. They have you pushing service contracts, service contracts, service contracts. It's not just for fun. They're not doing it for giggles, okay? Service contracts are like assets under management. We all love assets under management. But here's the thing. It helps you and it helps the customer, okay? Because they get their scheduled maintenance when they're supposed to get it. They get the same reliable service every 6 months, spring and fall, all those things, yes. But here's the thing. They won't, because they've prepaid their maintenance to you, they won't defect unless you completely screw it up, okay? Another thing, when you have 60-degree weather like we have now, guess what happens? So when your company takes in service agreement money, what some of them do is they take that service agreement money and they use it to pay down their liability insurance. Because in case you're not aware, if you're not aware, liability insurance is very expensive. It takes a lot of money to run a business. So what they do is they take it and they put a big chunk down on that insurance so the monthly premium is nice and low. What does that mean? When the monthly premium is nice and low and we have a string of 60-degree weather, guess what they can do? They have the money aside to be able to afford to pay you to continue to have you work instead of laying you off. Okay? So that's what it's used for. That's what it's used for. Okay? So it's used to keep things going. So you're feeding a machine, yes you are, but you're feeding it for the right reasons. You're feeding it for your own financial security, you're feeding it for the financial well-being of your organization you work for, because you should always protect the shield, you should always protect the company name, but you're also helping your customer by doing maintenance. So yes, you're charging them, yes, but you're doing maintenance for them. You're doing what they need. You're forcing them to go to the doctors twice a year, but the doctor is you, and the system is not, and the patient is not them, it's the system inside their house, or systems in their house, okay? So you should be selling service contracts every day, twice on Sunday, and more. I know they're telling you that, but they might not give you the full reason. I gave you the full rationale. Whether any owners listening to this want me to tell you or not, but they probably do, because you should be selling, okay? So, long answer to your very short question, also offer a service contract in there because it's gonna protect you. So you have them on a contract, okay? Give them discounts for repairs, give them all that stuff, but at least you get them in. Because if they start, it's like a kid, if you leave them to their own devices, they're gonna snort sugar and they're gonna break things in the house. And if you keep them controlled, you keep them under contract, you know they're gonna do their maintenance every 6 months, okay? And that the system won't start running inefficiently because they haven't called you for maintenance in a while. Did the last technician leave it running correctly? We don't wanna hand our family's health or our family's livelihood over to what the last technician did. We wanna test everything. It's not a conspiracy theory type thing where we gotta test. We're testing because things can change from visit to visit. We are verifying that nothing changed. We're hoping that nothing changed, but we need to verify that with a combustion test. Did the gas pressure change? We gotta verify that. Is the draft correct? Did a bird make a nest in there? You saw that guy in those slides, beginning where it was the pictures of the naughtiness that's taking place up there. You saw the guy in the ladder pulling the stuff out of that exhaust. That's what can happen from visit to visit, okay? And then did you do the blood work on that system, otherwise known as the combustion analysis? Seasonal checklist. Draft, gas pressure. If you're working on oil systems, do a smoke test first, combustion test, crack heat exchanger, cross-contamination verification, which I'll get to as well as ambient seal monitoring. Diagnostics, here we go. Using your analyzer as a diagnostic tool. How can we find, solve, and prevent problems with a combustion analyzer? Diagnose. What direction is the combustion analysis pointing you in? Do we have a draft issue? Do we have a cracked heat exchanger issue? Then you're gonna solve. When you verify through the readings what parts need to be replaced or what adjustments need to be made, you're going to make said adjustments or replace said parts, and you're going to test again. Why? Because you have your baseline numbers that were askew over here. You now have your new set of numbers that should confirm that the adjustment or the repair that you made was the correct call. So now the numbers should be in line, and you're going to show your customer that. Don't just go, look, I fixed it, and run. No, you're gonna show them the before, you're gonna show them the after. And if you're really good, you're gonna go and you're gonna take a screenshot of what the industry says your system should be running at. And you're gonna have that as one of the images in your report, especially using our stuff. You could take an image, because we have up to 8 photos, take a screenshot of that, or even go on to ChatGPT or AI, whatever, Grok, whatever AI form I'm gonna go on to, and say, this is what the industry says it should be, how it should run, but look, this new set of combustion readings mirror what it says it should be. So I'm leaving you with a proper, clean bill of health when I walk out your door, so you don't have to worry about it, okay? All about numbers and measured data nowadays. No longer, oh, I think it's this or I think it's that. Those days are done. It's precision, 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 thinking, thinking, thinking. And then you're gonna prevent. You're gonna test it every visit to prevent issues and costly repairs. Be the pro and proactive. General diagnostic insights, which he just thinks is remarkable. CO spike at 2000 ppm and above it, light off. Possible indicator of delayed ignition, igniter issue, thermocouple issue. O2 spike when the fan comes on. Possible indication of a cracked heat exchanger, gasket issue. We're gonna talk more about that later. CO spike at shutdown. Possible indicator of a leaky valve. High CO and high temps. Possible overfire condition. O2 drop at shutdown. Possible secondary heat exchanger not draining and filling with water, and you would see your CO go up, or CO air free go up at that time too, because it's an inverse relationship. When oxygen in goes up, CO goes down, but when oxygen plummets, CO is on the rise. Draft not within spec. Draft inducer issue, blockage, barometric damper issue, compromised chimney. 3 phases of combustion diagnostics. Some of the stuff that if you attend an NCI class, you're gonna learn a lot of this stuff. And they really go heavily in depth in this stuff. Light off. CO only is gonna be your main focus. First 60 seconds of burner operation. Steady state. 5 minutes or greater system runtime. You're gonna focus on CO and oxygen. You're also gonna focus on stack temperature. You're also gonna focus on draft. You're always taking your draft at steady state because that's when the sweet spot is in the system's running capabilities, and that's when the flue is nice and warmed up and everything's proper, okay? Or should be proper. And then shutdown, you're gonna focus on CO and O2, and that is 60 seconds after the burner operation ends. Diagnostic observations during these three phases. Light off will show up as a rising carbon monoxide, will peak out and then will fall. If you have a venting issue, it's gonna show up as a rising carbon monoxide with falling oxygen and high draft. If you have a combustion air issue, it's gonna show up as rising carbon monoxide, falling oxygen with no draft. And if you have bad gas valves, it's gonna show up as a rising carbon monoxide after the flame goes out. Light off diagnostics, very important, here we go. So, we're looking at CO air free for natural draft under 400 ppm, like I talked about earlier, and I also mentioned condensing systems under 1000 ppm. Items affecting light off: pilot size or position, spark, hot service position, burner alignment and fuel problems. Also, burner alignment and fuel problems can show up in steady state as well. If there's no excessive CO or rollout condition, you would not need to red tag this system. But very important, we look at the tells of light off and what we're looking at here, so we know whether we need to stop the process. Steady state. I don't care about your flame color. Don't tell me you have a nice pretty blue flame like you'd see on a gas company emblem. Doesn't work for me. I have seen 3,500 to 4,600 ppm on a nice blue flame that everybody thought, oh my God, it looks pristine. That's great, it can look pristine, but the CO is still through the roof. I care about flame size and I care about flame performance. I don't want flame erraticacies. I want a controlled patient. I don't want an elongated flame, which I'll get to, okay? So things affecting steady state. Again, 5 minutes or greater runtime. Fuel, air, venting, draft is too high. Combustion air, draft is too low. Mechanical defects. Underfired, fuel too low. Overfired, excessive fuel. Rust and soot caused by poor combustion performance. All roads lead back. This here creates this a lot of times. It's either you didn't do the maintenance you're supposed to do, which is probably not the case given this crowd, or the previous contractor screwed it up, which could be the case because they're not sitting there, or the customer didn't call either one of you out to do maintenance, and it went for a while, and they had issues there because of a lack of maintenance, and that caused mechanical defects, okay? And then shutdown. 60 seconds after the burner shuts down, high CO, fuel is still present, leaky gas valve, residual oil not burned off, CO spike at the end of a cycle, possible clogged secondary heat exchanger, and then also flame impingement. So you can see, light off, it's got its diagnostic characteristics. Steady state has its own set of characteristics. Shutdown has its own set. So it's unique unto themselves, so that when you're looking at something, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, I just gave you a roadmap to properly look at systems correctly. Now, when I had the slide at the beginning about the book that I put out, the book itself has 21 diagnostic scenarios, and then because I'm highly OCD, I listed it for sale and then pulled it back off and added another 6 pages. In those 6 pages are 16 additional rapid fire diagnostic situations. So I give you a plethora of things that you can see, okay? And things you're gonna see. So I not only tell you, so the diagnostics are broken down this way. This is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing. So I'm building a structure for you as far as how to think from a diagnostic perspective and to change how your brain is wired in that way. So hopefully by the end of that time that you're reading that, you'll understand it that much better. But this is a sample set of what's in there. And we're not gonna touch upon oil today, we're gonna bypass that. We're not gonna do measure quick because we're not gonna belabor that. Here.
Oh.
Ever see this before? Spillage.
Spillage.
Yep. By the way, flue gases and CO or carbon monoxide doesn't leak, it spills. It spills, okay? That is another thing learned from the National Company Institute, very important. Never leaks, always spills. So we need to check sizing, pitch, proper support, proper termination above the snow line, free of corrosion, free of blockages, okay? So, you see that here, these grommets, see the spillage here? Over here, the larger appliance obviously is gonna spill into the smaller one just because of the way the physics works when there's a blockage. You see the blockage here. So we wanna make sure that we are checking the integrity of our draft every time, obviously installing, of course, but every time we're there for a maintenance visit, a diagnostic visit, we always need to verify that our system essentially isn't constipated. Because your system is a living and breathing thing. You take in fuel, it takes in fuel. You take in oxygen, it takes in oxygen. As a matter of fact, it's designed to thrive and take in the same 20.9 that your body is. It's designed that way in a lab, but it's designed to operate with 20.9 being ingested in real life. Your internal body parts process your air and fuel and give you energy to go about your day and to move around and to live. Same thing here. The fuel and air that it takes in gives it the energy that it needs to be able to generate heat. Okay? So again, if one component doesn't behave right, it can't produce heat. Same thing in your body. If certain components aren't behaving correctly, it could shorten your life or cause you to be felled and to be knocked down on the sidelines. Okay? And then, as your body goes ahead and it poos, this system poos. We want to make sure. What was that?
It pooed.
It
You
pooed.
didn't do it.
It pooed the bed.
That's weird. Your projector? Is it?
Yeah, we're gonna have to reset the projector.
We broke it.
Bulb too hot,
That means I have to shut up now. I talked too long.
bulb too hot.
It's gonna cool off and it'll be back up in a minute.
So while we're doing that,
COAF,
CO air freight. CO air AF.
air free?
Yep. Yep. So while we're waiting to do this, I'm gonna give you a story that was off that slide there. They don't need to see the slide for me to tell you. So this past, so January 1st of 2025, there was a French model, 76 years old, just got done doing a photo shoot for Vogue, and she was found dead in Pennsylvania. She had spent New Year's Eve at her Hollywood B-list, her son-in-law's place. And he inherited a large property from his family. And they had a bunch of buildings on site, and they put her in the farthest remote building. She wanted to come and see the family, and he had a lot of guests there at the time. She definitely wanted to come and see her family, and she did, but she was shot. And she said, listen, I'll watch the ball drop, give everybody a hug and a kiss, but then I'm going to bed. She had spent 4 months dieting down and training for this photo shoot. And if she was 45, she was 100 years old. So I don't know what kind of genetics she had in her family, but whatever they were very good. So she was a stunning, stunning woman at the age of 76. So when the situation happened, she was staying in one of the outbuildings there that the furnace hadn't been maintained in at least 8 years. That was an issue. So what happened was they had a blockage, like I showed you on the other picture there. They had a blockage there, but they also had the flue was also compromised, and she wound up succumbing to carbon monoxide poisoning as a result of it. And her partner that showed up about 3 in the morning, they found him unresponsive. And when they first got there on scene, they thought it was at its worst. That the CO was over 3,000. CO air was over 3,000 ppm. So they think it had just happened because he was unresponsive. They think it just climbed through because the system was coming out of recovery that early in the morning when the alarm went off, because the heat was set to 62 degrees overnight, so it didn't run much at all. But when the system was coming out of recovery in the morning to bring the heat up to 70, that's roughly when the alarm went off. So it was tied into central alarm, and that's when they found her deceased, and so they found him unresponsive.
The alarm didn't wake her up?
No, she was already passed.
Oh.
No, it would hit her so hard that she passed away from it. It took a while for the alarm to go off. But when it finally did and tapped central alarm, then it was enough to generate the fire trucks, the paramedics went there. So that was the story for that. But anyway, we want to make sure that we're protecting against. So I have to click. Is that working here? I'm gonna click. For some reason, stop it. Let's see what we got here.
Battery okay?
I think so. Let me turn this off, turn it on again.
Is the display on?
Oh, one again.
Yeah, there we go. advance through and get to the where we were before. Boy, I said a lot of things tonight, that's a lot. Okay. So back, so we'll advance to this one now. So what are we missing here? Fresh air intake, okay? We wanna make sure that if it's a condensing system, that we install the fresh air intake because we wanna pull the 20.9% oxygen. We don't know what's going to happen here, okay? We don't know what solvents, detergents, anything else they're using because this previous slide here, actually it's not even on this one, but we wanna make sure they're not using any detergents or solvents in here. We wanna make sure that everything is safe and proper. Because what kills heat exchangers the most? You do, service technicians and homeowners. Excessive temperature rise, low temperature rise by not monitoring a system. Excessive fuel input, low fuel input, same thing. Improper venting, mechanical damage, but chemicals. That's where the homeowners contribute. The chemicals in that area. We want to keep those chemicals out of there or keep the bottles sealed. We don't want those things getting into that open air, especially with those older systems that are still using room air, those atmospheric systems, still pulling room air into those spaces there, into that system. We don't want to have that done. We don't want to have any improprieties in that air. So we want to make sure that we're monitoring that, okay? Draft testing. Yeah, for time, we're good. So we have two different kinds of systems here, as you can tell. One atmospheric, one condensing. As I mentioned before, this is pulling air from the room that it is using for its combustion process. So we can have competition for combustion air. We can have incorrect stack size. We can have leakage. We can have a damper issue. We can have a chimney issue. We can have somebody who changes a furnace or boiler room and removes a louvered door and removes a drop ceiling, which will choke the system off for air. That's an issue. Over here on the condensing side, we can have an exhaust vent blockage. We can have a pressure switch starting to misbehave or not functioning correctly or misbehaving. And we can have also a draft inducer or induced draft motor misbehaving too. The one thing I want to get across is this. Over here, fresh air intake. Whether you're commissioning, maintaining, or diagnosing, you always want to verify that you have, by putting your probe in the fresh air intake adjacent to where you put it in for combustion, you always want to verify that you have nice, pristine 20.9% oxygen coming back to that system. As you are designed to breathe in 20.9, so is this thing, and so is that one. But you want to make sure there's 20.9 coming back to that, because if it's less than that, that means you have more carbonic acid and more NOx going through there. NOx is an acidic poisonous gas. Nitric, not nitrous. Nitric oxide is an acidic poisonous gas that eats whatever it touches. So as it gets pulled down in here and it gets into the mechanicals, it's going to start to eat them and age them prematurely, which is a problem. Again, it's like sipping Drano every day. We don't want to do that, okay? So very, very important that we put that probe in there and we make sure we have 20.9. I would check my draft, obviously revisit, but I would always go out, unless it's on a roof, always go out and verify that there are no nests or nothing is in there, especially in the sidewall discharge, okay? So just point of fact. Gas pressure leak detection as we get to the end here. So if you don't have a gas leak detector, we make one. Do I want you to buy mine? Yes, of course I do. But I want you to have a gas leak detector overall. It should be an everyday carry for you, okay? Because gas leaks are silent killers and that can be an issue. We don't want that. So, manifold pressure. As in the words of Jim Bergman, clock the meter. Never assume all is fine. Change your orifice when necessary. Adjust the fuel pressure to the manufacturer's specifications. Typical nominal low fire rate is 1.7, high fire is 3.5. Average range that you're going to hit your sweet spot in is going to be between 3.2 to 3.8, okay? Higher settings can create overfiring conditions, flame impingement, and taxing the system's capabilities, and also high levels of CO. As in low settings, can also create overheating and high CO due to incomplete combustion where we have that wider, incorrectly patterned flame. That's an issue, okay? What does this look like? It looks like this. Manifold pressure, an example. On the left is a before, on the right is an after. On the left, we have CO about 35 ppm, oxygen at about 9%, stack temperature about 243. So when it makes an incorrect adjustment and dials gas pressure up too much, what happens? CO goes through the roof, oxygen plummets, stack temperature on the rise. If left unchecked or uncorrected, that is potentially going to shorten service life, create a dangerous condition, and it's going to crush the efficiency. It's going to waste money. So what does that mean? That means this. Over here, Massachusetts, 1 person dead, 12 hospitalized, 39 homes destroyed, September 14th, 2018. I'll give you the quick and dirty version of the story. They were pursuing any technicians that have been to these properties and over the last year, or the year prior to this incident happening. One of the technicians in question used the combustion analyzer. When he went into court, they were questioning him. But before he got to court, his company had fired him. They were suing him, they were suing his parents, and they were suing his 2 sisters. Yes, they were. They were suing all of his family members. They threw anything at the wall to see if it would stick. So when he went to court, he knew what he was going to court for. He actually did his combustion test. And every audience I tell, I'm gonna tell the same thing to you. Anytime you do a combustion test, you should send a copy to yourself. Why? You might not work for your contracting firm anymore. And if somebody says they were sick because of what took place in the house, and they're asking every contractor in there what they did, and if the company here, for example, doesn't have a copy of your combustion test, you won't have the ability to prove what you did. But if you email the copy to yourself, and when you send it to the email, you put it in the subject matter, and because it's all timestamped, and you send it to yourself, you can actually use that in court and actually show, to avoid the wanton act that I showed you in the beginning slides, you can actually show the state of health and way that you left that piece of equipment. Again, as I go through all these things with you, I'm going to come full circle and tie all these little things in together and put a nice little bow on it. So one of those bows is this, avoiding that wanton act that I told you was a liability issue. So he had all those things. So when he went to court, industry expert went through his numbers, said, obviously this wasn't you, your numbers are fine, gas pressure is 3.5, all of his other parameters are great. He said, what do you think caused this to him? He goes, very simply put, you guys had an issue with gas pressure and it was a bad one. Come to find out that they did. So instead of on that day, the gas pressure being delivered to those properties in inches of water column, yep, instead of inches of water column, it was delivered at the rate of over 200 PSI.
Oh my
The
God.
system was pirated. The gas company in question thinks it was down to 2 individuals that were terminated prior. But when it first happened, they said it was an engineering malfunction. They were working on the lines. It was not. The system was pirated. They just didn't tell anybody that because a personal friend of mine did the forensics on this, so I know a lot more about this than anybody else does. So it was pirated. So the regulators were removed and sensors were taken off. Witness accounts were when they lit their stovetops, if they had gas, that the flames went from the stovetop all the way up to the ceiling, like a Kiss concert. And the houses that were affected were the ones either calling for their domestic hot water off their boilers that day, or they were lighting their stovetops or ovens, but mainly stovetops. Because it was a 74-degree day. If they said if this was a cold day, all 12,000 houses plus in that grid would have potentially gone up in flames, and that would have been an issue, okay? So the company wound up settling a couple times, I think around 2019, later in 19, and then again in 20 or 21. But it settled in the hundreds of millions of dollars to all the people involved. And the one person who died was an 18-year-old young man. He died in front of his parents. You can Google this story and find out all these things. He died right in front of them, and he was listening to his music in his car in his driveway. He had waited till he was 18 to get his license. His parents got him his first car. It was a used car, obviously. And all he was doing, he was in his driveway idling, listening to music. And when the explosions happened, the chimney came off the top and side of his house, landed on the roof of the car, and killed him instantly. So, there was a lot of dry eye in the court too. My buddy said when the mom gave the testimony in court, that even the male judge, was dabbing his eyes that he was having a hard time with it. So,
There was
again,
one in Cleveland where somebody connected up the furnace to 5 PSI, the high pressure gas line. Blow torch.
yep, exactly.
Boom.
Yeah, like the back of the Batmobile.
Yeah.
Yeah, very dangerous. So, again, would a combustion analyzer prevented this? Only if he noticed it when he was there. But what it is it was a CYA. It showed the state of health the way that he left it, so he avoided that wanton act. And he was able to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt what he did there. No issue, no harm, no foul. And he was released off the stand. So,
Take them all.
something to keep in mind. So, you don't want this to be the last thing you see, so make sure we're doing our job correctly. In the finale, before I touch a little bit on AI for a second. It's time we got it. We're good. Okay, so this is also covered in my book extensively. It takes like 12 pages to go through it. I'm going to give you the version of that now in spoken form. So again, in case you forgot, stop killing heat exchangers because I won't be your friend if you keep doing that because we can't hang out together. Don't do that. So I'm only going to fixate on a few slides, but I'm going to go through this and be very, very specific. Okay? So Here we go. AHRI Guideline X, not only me telling you you have to use a combustion analyzer, but they tell you it's actually part of the specification. So watch for flame disturbances, measure CO in the airstream, measure it in a stack, verify installation, inspect the heat exchanger. So you want to inspect the heat exchanger, yes. You want to inspect its integrity with your visuals, yes. So all the visual inspection you've always done, you want to do. Now, where do we fall down though in that visual inspection? What you might see, I might not see. What you might see, he might not see. What Tom might see, Jeff might not see. Which means what? In this room, we have experience levels that are all over the spectrum. In this room, that means we have variability. What does variability mean to a contracting firm? Liability. Liability is a headache that nobody wants. We want to eliminate liability at every turn. That is why we now introduce digital tools or an actual measurement criteria type device, such as a combustion analyzer, to help us along with that process. So we want to continue our visual inspection 100%, 110% actually. We want to verify installation, yes we do, but then we want to employ this process here. So, I'm not going to get involved in those pictures because you've all seen those before. So what's required? Combustion analyzer with 1 ppm resolution, which is what we have here. Okay, so you want to make sure you're using a current combustion analyzer that's been updated, properly calibrated, serviced, and all that fun stuff. So we have rusting, staining, cracks, all this stuff here, failures at welds, over here. So all these issues. So testing the airstream, testing the supply side, which is what you mentioned before. That's why I'm going to get to it now. Test the return, which I'm going to cover all this. Nothing more than 0 to 9. Again, I told you I want 0. That's why it's in bold. Focus and be cognizant of your levels. Look for flame disturbances. I'm stopping at this slide. I'm going to explain the whole thing from here. Okay. First thing you're going to do, ambient CO test. You're going to take your analyzer. You're going to monitor the ambient environment. You're going to make sure that you have 0 CO in that living space. 1. Step 2. System is currently off. Analyzer is mounted. Probe is placed into the stack. Flip the switch on the side of the air handling unit. Furnace is going to come on. You're going to notice a couple of things. You're going to notice your oxygen plummeting. Why? Because you are no longer measuring ambient air conditions. You're now measuring byproducts of combustion. You're going to notice your CO on the rise because it's the exact same thing. Within 15 to 20 seconds though, your oxygen is going to stabilize. Okay, so it's bouncing, very irregular, and all of a sudden it's going to go. So say it stabilizes at 6%. Whoop-de-Todd, Jester's dead, good stuff. Then, unless you've jumped it out in another 15 to 20 seconds, your fan's going to come on. I wish it would stop that. I can actually explain the rest of it. I don't even need that slide on. I don't even need it on. I'm serious. So, unless you've jumped out, that fan's going to come on. When that fan comes on, it creates negative pressure. So what does that mean? That means that door is shut, that means that door is shut, and this is a contained room. This is a sealed combustion party, exactly. Sealed combustion party. No one's getting in. I don't care what your hair looks like, I don't care what you're wearing, I don't care who you know, you're not coming in, okay? Fine. But when the negative pressure is created, it wants to rip the cooler into the middle of the room, it wants to rip the whiteboards and the signage off the wall, it wants to bring all the apparatus, all the thermostats, and all the controls over here, and it wants to go like this with it. But because there's 6% oxygen, it goes, whoop, it stops. Right here. Stops right here. As it goes, ay, it's almost like suspended animation. It's got 6%, and that's all I've got. I can't take it and go like this. I gotta be like this, okay? But if there's a crack, for example, this open doorway over here, say this is our crack, what do we have? We have the negative pressure pulling on the surface of the heat exchanger all around us, pulling on the surface. If there is a crack here, right, it acts like a siphon, and it's going, and it is pulling in like a siphon through the crack additional oxygen. So it's taking the adjacent 20.9% oxygen that is over there, introducing that to the 6% oxygen condition that is contained when we had the negative pressure established. 20.9 plus 6%, adding that in, what does that do? Jumps up the oxygen. If the oxygen jumps up 2% or greater, chances are you have a crack. And the last time I checked, cracks don't get smaller with age, they only get bigger. okay?
Yeah.
You got a crack, okay? Now, we go with 2% or greater, okay? Now, say you don't find it there. Here's why you might not find it there. Because certain furnaces, for example, Carrier is wonderful products. I love Carrier. There's nothing against them. Matter of fact, they're magnificent, as I mentioned. But they have their inducers, some of their inducers that have this Venturi effect, which basically take anything that would go into that, flue gases and everything else, CO and everything else that goes, nothing to see here. Because of the Venturi effect, it sweeps it away. Okay, so you can't test the same way you would test. It doesn't show up. Okay, it's okay. Many ways to get the wrong. Or it's just not showing up for whatever reason. So we have other processes that we go through. So the next process that we do, and again, I don't need any slides anymore for this stuff, so we're good. Your probe, you dismount your analyzer, you take your probe out of the stack, you're going to now create an access hole, like 3/8 for the probe tip, one in the supply trunk, one in the return trunk. You're going to put your probe in. If you see CO in the supply trunk, it's coming from the appliance you're working on, chances are. If you see it in the return trunk, chances are it's coming from another appliance within inside the structure. So what you're doing now is you're narrowing things down. You are eliminating suspects, okay? Or confirming suspects. So again, create the access hole in the supply trunk from the appliance you're working on, return trunk, appliance within space. Next, you don't see it there, even if you do, but if you don't see it there, you're now going to take your analyzer, you're going to go to the supply registers and the return grills. You're going to put it right in front. Here's why. We just tested in the trunk line, right? That's one of our fail-safe tests. We don't live in trunk lines. Unless you're a little pygmy, you're not living in a trunk line. We live in a conditioned space. I have seen it where we've had no CO, or CO air freight in that case, in the return trunk, but in the return grill up in the living space, I've seen 6 ppm entering the return grill. Why? Because around the corner, it was either a water heater or a oven or stove that was malfunctioning that we found the issue from, that the homeowner finally goes, you know what? Every time I'm home, I feel like crap. But every time I'm away, I feel great. I couldn't figure it out. That's why. Because every day, when the water heater would run, it would produce carbon monoxide, and they'd be in the general living space, breathing it in, and it makes them feel off. Those are one of the tells, okay? And why did we not find them in the return trunk? Here's why. Because from the return grill here to down here in the return trunk over here, dilution took place, oxygen displaced it, and made it be negligible to zero. That is why. That is why we don't stop at the trunk line. We continue with the supply registers and return grill. If we don't see it there, are we done? No. I am now going to give you your security blanket back. I'm going to give you your whoopee back. What is your whoopee, or what is your security blanket? It's testing at steady state. It's your comfort zone. When you've started testing, one of the things you always did, even prior to maybe walking in our door here, or Tom's door here, is you tested at steady state as a primary modality for combustion testing. Because we didn't test it later because we're paranoid about spiking things, which I hopefully have cleared that picture up for you. But we tested at steady state. We've all done it. We all do it every day. You're supposed to test at steady state. But I'm going to give you that back. I'm going to hand you back what makes you feel most comfortable. And now you're looking at things differently. So now you've remounted the analyzer, but you're looking at things differently. You're not looking for that 2% oxygen jump. You're looking at oxygen behavior, yes, but you're looking for that 200 ppm or greater CO threshold that I talked about earlier, because now you're at steady state. Because we all know when things run for a while and they heat up, that's when they can start to malfunction. As you have found in your other times of testing at steady state, you have found things that have malfunctioned. Maybe it didn't happen at light off, but when things get warmed up and the groove gets greased, that's when things misbehave. That's why we test at steady state. You might find it there. If you don't find it there, are you done? Yes, but maybe not. The last phase, and this phase might make your brain go poof, because my brain's about to go poof, because it's been like a 14-hour day for me. So last thing, if you don't find it at doing your walkthrough, doing your ambient, you don't find it during the traditional cracked heat exchanger test that I walked over with a 2% increase, you don't find it in the trunk lines, you don't find it in supply registers, return grills, you don't find it at steady state. Last frontier, You have a system that you think is suspect, and I'm not saying to do this on every one, but if you have a system that you think is suspect, here's what you're gonna do. Here's the explanation. You might have a system that has very loosey-goosey static pressure, which means it's just like minimal, and it's just like, wah. When I say wah, here's what I mean. So, it might be so, the pressure might be so low in there that it is not enough to drive the oxygen into the crack in the heat exchanger. So it basically hovers above it, and it's not enough to force it into the crack because there's not enough static pressure. So what do? When I tell you this, I know that you know it, but you don't know that you know it because you've never drawn these parallels together or deduced it this way. But once I tell you, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I actually kind of knew it, but I didn't know that I knew it. So here's the thing. What are we gonna do? We're gonna close down a couple of supply registers. We're going to increase the static or the back pressure in there. And by doing so, we're going to bring a nice push of oxygen back by increasing that said pressure, because we're creating a bottlenecking effect down the line. So if there is no crack, the oxygen is going to come back and it's going to cascade over this, the top of the heat exchanger, nothing's going to happen. But if there's a crack and then oxygen gets forced back over here, this hole here is going to go, oh no, come to our party and go and suck it in. You brought the back pressure back, the oxygen's there. If there is no crack, the oxygen does this. If there is a crack, it goes and gets sucked in. It's sucked in. So you'll see, so we've seen it in lab conditions and I've seen it in real world applications where I'm trying to test this and it's driving me crazy at this point because I'm like, something's not right. And I get 7.2%. By the time I dampened down the second supply register, I was over 12. I'm like, oh, there we go. Bob's your uncle. I just found you. You're not hiding from me anymore. Again, it's a thinking person's field. Phil, how many years were you an instructor for?
35.
Is it not a thinking person's field?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is it okay to be smart?
Well, smart, you could have bad information.
You can, but when you're smart, though, you're looking to properly problem solve.
Yeah.
So the information has to be good, which means the information you're relying on cannot be hallucinogenic.
Don't use AI as the only answer.
Exactly. Leads me to my point with hallucinogenic. Now that I've explained that to you, now I'm going to jump into the AI section because I don't even need this behind me to do it because I can do this in my sleep. So, AI is extremely valuable. It is becoming better every single day. But you have to know how to ask it. You have to be structured in what you're looking for. You cannot assume anything with it. It can be hallucinogenic. It can be like you've asked it a question and it's like it's the 80s and it's on Quaaludes and it's going to give you back a weird answer. If you're very specific with the question though, what I always ask it to do, as I always say, when you give me, I set it up in advance, I always tell it, I don't want crowdsourced information. When I want information from a forum or somebody's Facebook post, whatever it's going to be, I will ask you for that. Otherwise, every time I ask you a question about a mechanical or diagnostic situation, you are to never give me somebody's opinion. You are to give me the straight shot information, either from a textbook itself, or from a service bulletin, or from a manual from a piece of equipment. I don't want guesswork. I don't want assumptions made. You want to draw parallels for me, that's fine. You draw those parallels, but you do not take it from crowdsourced information until I ask you. So, what I'll do is I'll get, and this is what I would do if I was you. So a typical day. When I got my tickets for the day, first, before I go to the first job site, look at the nature of the problem. Okay, first call, York system. It's a YP9C. I know it's a modulating gas furnace. I need to know, because they're having an issue with condensate on the floor, and it's not coming from the condensate pump. I need to know what I'm looking for, any service bulletins or anything else. It's going to then spit back to me, because I know this for a fact, because I've done it with it, and when I do my AI presentation, this is what it gave me. It gave me a list of all the things, everything from the pitch of the flue to this, and also talked about the secondary heat exchanger and non-draining and filling with water, which is a known issue for those furnaces. But what it also told me, actually didn't give me one, there was one piece of information it didn't give me. And I said, you're missing something. And it came back to me and said, I know I'm missing one specific thing. And it said back to me, what do you think it is? I go, I'm not telling you. You're telling me what it is because I know what it is. So I'm not leading the witness. You're going to tell me. And this blew me away because I was a York dealer. It came back and said the condensate collector box leaks. It's a known issue. It's a warranty issue. And wait, it said, I guarantee you it created a problem for you because you weren't getting your street rate. You were getting the warranty rate. And I guarantee you, if you're a York dealer, you're probably doing 4 to 5 of these a week. And I'm like, what are you, Satan? How do you know this? And I'm like, and it goes, tell me I'm not correct. And I go, no, you're 100% correct. It had no idea. You know how obscure that is? That's a very obscure thing. Because when it said, tell me what you know it to be, I'm like, oh no, that's not how this goes. It's your job to be that other brain for me. So it gave me back that information. That's one of the ways that I would use it. So then when I went, if you go to the site, you know different things you're looking for. Then when you get your information diagnostics, you have your readings. You say, listen, these are the diagnostics. You can do one of two things. You can say, this is what I think is wrong. Prove me wrong or prove me correct. And then we'll go through and we'll tell you if you're right or wrong based on what the industry says and based on other combustion, based on all the information it gathers out there in the space. Or you can say, what do you think is wrong with this based on what I've given you? What are some things I can check? It'll give you a list of what is potentially wrong, but it'll give you a list of things to check and then recheck. That's another way that you can use it. Taking your readings. Also, you have a customer who's an engineer. You want to learn how to speak to them. We all know engineers can be rather difficult at times. Everybody loves an engineer, but I can tell you if you are an engineer, you're the person that nobody wants to talk to at the Christmas party because they all think that you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yep.
Just
You are
kidding.
an
You're
asshole.
nice people. You're
Got that
nice
right.
people. You're very smart people. But an engineer
You're an
sometimes
asshole.
isn't the most exciting person to talk to at a family function or a party. All kidding aside. But it can tell you how to explain the diagnosis to an engineer so the engineer doesn't keep you there for an hour and a half asking you questions. Also, too, what I know it's doing for you guys currently right now, whether you're using it in your company or not, but AI can actually listen to your conversations every day with a customer, and it can actually give you a script of what to say to your customer, or when you get to your truck, it can tell you, this is what you should say next time. And it can actually do that, because it can listen in on you, because your company, a lot of the companies, especially private equity firm companies that have businesses out here, which most of them are, they set it up that way. That's another way that you can do it. But the way that I love is this one. Okay, you want to get smarter? You're going to class. Get the paid versions, like $19 a month for whatever AI platform you want. I forget, yours might be less, some might be more, doesn't matter. Go, okay. I need to learn more about the refrigeration cycle. I'm getting jammed up when I'm working on a condensing unit, okay? These are some of the things that are jamming me up. I need you to create a structured learning modules for me that every day I will report into you when I'm driving to work on my 20-minute commute or half-hour commute. You're gonna tell me which module's next, and you're gonna read it off to me as if I'm listening to an audiobook instruction about the refrigeration cycle and what I need help with. And if I have questions, I'm just gonna stop you, and feel free to have me stop you because I'm a slow learner and I need to learn this better. And literally you'll get in your truck and go, okay, we talked about this, please start to speak to me with module 1 and I'll pause you if I have questions. Okay, Ty, here we go. Whew. Does all that. Or if you're like me and you're like a real dork, so just so you all know, besides all this fun refrigeration and HVAC stuff, I have a degree in finance and I have a degree in economics. I'm the kind of nerd that was gonna write an article for The Economist, so I'm a full-blown pocket protector nerd. Just one that knows jujitsu and bench presses 300 pounds. But I'm a nerd by design. So I'll go to it, which you would never do unless you're a glutton for punishment like me. One of the things I did on one of the plane rides I took, put it in my ears and I said, you're gonna love this. I would learn more about profit and loss statements. I wanna know the certain things that are driving profit and loss so I can analyze this better, so I can increase profitability, so I know what's gonna drive my sales, and I know what's gonna drive my marketing. Can we please create a learning module? And I sat there for an hour and learned, as it was an audiobook in my ear, all about profit and loss statements and what drives a profit and loss. So you can pick whatever topic you want. If you want to talk about bird watching, you can ask it about bird watching. It doesn't have to be about business. It doesn't have to be about your vocation. You wanna learn about auto mechanics, even though you're not an auto mechanic. You wanna learn about ripping apart an engine without seeing it. You can learn all about those kinds of things. So you can get as in-depth as you wanna get. The better questions you ask of it, the better responses you will get from it. You just know that you have to vet it. It always gives you that little disclaimer. You always have to verify what it's telling you. However, if you tell it certain things to disseminate certain things out and to filter certain things out, it will only give you what can be verified. And I'm telling you, it's powerful. You can accelerate, you could take your brain, and at a minimum, in my humble opinion, you can add a minimum of 30% to your capacity just by shattering that learning curve and learning that much faster. Because why? It's a layered thinker. There's nothing better than watching a corporate executive in front of you make a decision that's difficult, and you watch them think in layers. I've had the luxury and the good fortune of watching many great executives come up with solutions in front of me, and you watch them think and they break something down. So if you follow what AI is giving you for answers, you can kind of learn how to think better and think critically better and deduce better. So you can become faster with your own decision making. But then when it gives you the answers to certain things, you're also going to reverse engineer it and see how it got there. So instead of asking it next time, you're going to know. So what does that mean? You're smarter. What I tell you before, thinking person's game. You're going to get smarter. There are many ways to feed that beast, and again, don't be ashamed to be smart. That was all that was in my cranium for tonight. Yes, sir.
So, are some AI platforms better for technical and some better for
Yes.
economics?
So they are. I can tell you what I use and what I really enjoy. I enjoy ChatGPT. Jeff enjoys Grok. There are other ones out there too. Don't take what I'm saying for gospel, because there could be another really good one. Oh,
The nice thing is you can use most of them for free and test them out.
Yeah, I have. So
For business, I do the paid one, which gives you a little bit faster,
How about this
responses.
Claude?
Claude is another
I've
good
heard
one.
of that one, yeah.
So check this out. So this is another thing that happened. So I was on the phone with an interpreter I got access to one of through a whole phone conversation thing. I was able to get information from one of the creators of AI. And he sold his shares like $170 million back in 2018, whatever it was. So he sold early, but he still is worth a ton of dough. And I think he's from Switzerland. Yeah, Switzerland. He lives in Colorado now, I believe. Anyway, he goes, I'm gonna give you one more, they're gonna give me one more question to ask. So I said, okay. I did a video that was at the HVAC school symposium that Brian Orr's team had filmed a couple years ago. I said, do something cool with this video. So it took the video on YouTube, and within 2 minutes, created a podcast of two people sitting in seats in this nice podcasting room that looked like humans, and they were discussing my material as if it was a topic of discussion from my presentation, kind of like what I just did now. But it was two people talking about it. But no, it didn't stop there. All of a sudden, in the foreground, like in the front, you see the two people speaking here, sitting, and they're having a conversation. Microphones in front of their faces, headphones are on, blah blah blah. And you see this little hand go, like, I mean to give you the FU. The little hand went up, and it asked a question to the podcast guests. Was not in my material. Asked something related to the topic, but was not covered by me. Podcast guys go, that's a great question. Let's answer that for you now. Answer the question, unrelated. Unrelated. So it can take YouTube videos, and it can take them, and it can break them down. It can create learning modules off of them. Like it can take my YouTube video, and it could create a combustion class off of my video in sections within seconds. When I say seconds, I mean seconds. So when I did my book, right, before I sent 6 copies in a row to Jeff every time I kept revising it, I put my finished product into AI, and I basically said, 1, is it thorough enough? But 2, compare it to the other books that are out there. And no sooner did I finish typing, within seconds, it had read my entire book, which means my book probably sucks, he read it that quickly, but it doesn't mean that, it doesn't work that way. Read my entire book within seconds and gave me all the feedback on it and where it sits in comparison to the book by Esco and some other things that are out there and blah, 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 blah. Within seconds, it did that. So, it's very, very powerful. But the thing is, and I'm a huge James Bond fan. In the movie, I think it was Skyfall. There's a scene in Skyfall where James Bond, Daniel Craig, is sitting next to the new Q with the wavy hair and the glasses, the new in-fashion Q, not the old Q. And they're talking about how the MI6 has changed and his responsibilities have changed. And Q had said to him, well, you're still in use because they're being replaced by computers and AI. But he goes, sometimes we need you because sometimes a trigger needs to be pulled. And Daniel Craig looks at him and goes, or not pulled. Either way, he decides. So, in this case, you're the one out there deciding whether the trigger gets pulled or not, and you're also the one pulling the trigger. Because parts need to be replaced. Things need to be done. Compressors need to be humped onto a rooftop with a rope and a pulley. With a second pair of hands and hope it's not going to fall in their face and knock their dental work out. On icy conditions, on an icy ledge to a roof. AI is not climbing up on an icy roof on like weather we had a couple of weeks ago here, is it? Last time I checked, it ain't.
there.
Nope. You are. You are. Other trades and other jobs are being replaced. All the software engineers, all their stuff, it's all being replaced. I designed a marketing campaign in about 30 seconds between myself and AI that would have taken somebody in our marketing department about 8 hours to design within 30 seconds. Go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Another thing you can do with it, my last thing before I sign off and leave you because I don't have any thoughts in my head, any more thoughts, is this. When you ask it questions about certain pieces of equipment, here's what I would do if I was you. In the notes section of my phone, I would list the manufacturer's name, and then I would take those notes and I would give it the model number, name, as the note in there, and I would put whatever information it gives you about a system, ask it for a 1 to 2 page executive summary that is downloadable. You can then take those notes, that 1 or 2 page executive summary, download it, throw it into the notes in your phone. When you see it populate the notes in your phone, you'll go ahead and put the title, York YP9C furnace information. And anytime you have information on that furnace, you need to refer to that, if you go to that furnace again, or to that same furnace in another application, another house or building, you can then go to that and go, oh, this is what I learned from it before. I had the executive summary. Or if you learn something new, you can add additional notes to it so that you build a file. So what are you doing? Again, thinking better. Thinking. It's all about thinking, okay? And I think it translated to using your hands.
Have you ever seen a situation in which a contractor saw a heat exchanger, for example, in such terrible condition, he told the occupants that they have to leave the house,
Oh, yeah.
and if they refuse, how can he legally wash his hands of that?
So, there are, my recommendation, one, so I have templated red tag protocols. I've helped about over 160 companies create them. There are templates out there that you can use. You can even use AI to create it. Create a red tag protocol that covers furnaces, boilers, and water heaters in a structure. It will tell you what you can say, what you can't say, what the customer needs to sign, how to phrase it exactly. In addition to that, I would ask your local code when you're allowed to shut something off and when you're not, and what signatures will cover you. Then I would put all that information together, and if you're working for a contracting firm, you have a lawyer. I would then send that information to your lawyer and have your lawyer give his or her blessing to it and make sure it's put into a formal document, and I would then give it to your staff and I would train them on it. It is extremely important that you do that. This way no one goes off book and says something or does something that's going to cause liability in the future or going to cause potential harm to somebody or for you guys to get sued. That is my specific recommendation on that. So that's how I would do it. And I would make it as ironclad as you can possibly get it. I've shut systems off. Where? Because I knew what I could do because I have firemen in my family. I shut a system off. And I told the homeowner before I was going to do it, or I was going to attempt to do it, they didn't let me. I said, I have to shut your system down. They said, you can wanna do that, but you're not gonna do that. Cause it was like 9 degrees. I said, no, you don't understand. I have to. They just came back from vacation. The reason they called us is their CO alarm was off the charts. It was screaming because their CO was like over like 600 or 700 ppm. I said, it's gotta be shut down. You're done. It's got a cracked heat exchanger. Nope. I said, well, here's how this is going to work now. I said, with all due respect to you, I care about your family's health and I care about people living. And then I also care about the liability that's gonna now happen to me if I leave here. So I'm gonna do one thing, and one of two things is going to happen. One is I'm going to now call the fire department. And one of the two things that are gonna happen is either I'm gonna wait for them on your front steps because you haven't kicked me off the property for calling the fire department, or I'm gonna wait for them at the curb by my truck because you've kicked me off the property. She looks me dead in the face and she goes, you can get your ass off my property and you can wait at your truck. I said, okay, hold on. Get down in my truck, call the fire department, let them know what I found. Within 6-7 minutes, fire department shows up. Who called it in? I did. What do you got? Show me the analyzer. Oh, okay. The homeowner comes out, she starts complaining, goes, not right now. Not right now. Step aside. He gets up there, his lapel was already going off and the system had been off for half an hour. And their alarms weren't screaming anymore, but his lapel went off. He goes inside, he goes, you? Me. She goes, I don't want him in here. He goes, it's okay that you don't want that. You with me. I said, okay. So I walked inside, walked by her, give her a nice little smile, because you gotta be a wise ass at that point. Because I told her, and so we go downstairs, he goes, show me. So I said, here, turn on real quick. I said, do me a favor, hit the basement window slider, please, because it's gonna go nuts. So he did, and turned it on, it was like 760 at that point. He goes, shut it off. I'm like, okay, shut it off. So he goes upstairs, she starts screaming at him because he let me in the house. He goes, again, not right now. Calls the gas company up. Yep, do me a favor, log out the meter, please. Gas company locked out the meter. No gas to the house until the system was replaced. And he looks at her, points to me, and he goes to her, you should kiss him on the cheek because he just saved everybody's life in this house. You would have been dead in a couple of hours if he didn't do what he did for you. But no. We came back from the tropics. We had to preserve our nice Calypso tan. We had to be warm in our house because we went from 85-degree weather to 9, and we don't want our pipes to freeze, which I can understand. That's why we had, as a company, space heaters. Ones that wouldn't burn your house down. We had a standing section at the Sheraton in Long Branch, New Jersey. Standing section at the Sheraton of 10 rooms on reserve around the holidays, because it always happens around the holidays where people have guests. On reserve, if any of our customers needed to get a room because we had to shut something down, we knew from past experience, like, listen, we're just gonna see if they can reserve them. They'll let us know if they can or they can't. We're not paying for anything, but they're under our name, so the customers call up to make the reservations. Oh yeah, such a company reserved them, yep, you got a room, here you go. So they can have a comfortable place to stay while they're waiting for us to replace their system. So,
Okay.
there's a lot of nuance to it all
Thanks.
out there. Yep. Anything else for my brain before I leave and go fly home and see if I'm still married?
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody.
Good to have you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thank you, thank you.
I told him it was gonna be a good meeting. I told you.